Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Birmingham Bible Church's Winning Wednesday. We are so glad that you have decided to join us here on today. We have people from all over watching us. We have someone from Florida. We have someone from Texas that logged in. So wherever you are, whether you are in Alabama or not, if you are in any state of the United States and across this world, we welcome you on today. Facebook family, we welcome you as well. YouTube family, we welcome you. And of course, YouTube people, we need you to subscribe to our channel. And that channel is BHAM BC. That's B as in boy, HAM BC. And we are also on Twitter. On Twitter, we are BHAM Bible Church. Of course, Pastor Mason's Twitter page is Dr. JHM the third, and the third is 3 I's. So on Twitter, we are BHAM Bible Church, or you can locate us under Pastor Mason's Twitter page, which is Dr. JHM, and then it's 3 I's. And so, of course, this is Winning Wednesday, and every Wednesday at 12 noon, we like to declare that everyone is a winner. So no matter what you're facing, no matter how you feel, no matter what you've been watching on CNN, whatever your situation is, you are victorious. And so not only do we want you to be victorious, but we want your families, your friends, your boss, your coworkers. We want everybody in your inner circle to be victorious as well. And so y'all know how we do it. We need you to share this broadcast from whatever social media you are in. We need you to text somebody, text your mama, text Big Mama, say, listen, I need y'all to listen to what's going on this topic that's here on today. And so we have a topic that's pretty tough to tackle. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but at some point, we're all going to have to go this way. And so that is death. At some point, we are all going to die. You can look at the news and you can tell that a lot of times, death is, has some type of warning. There's people who have illnesses, but then there are times that death is sudden. Y'all see there's been a lot of shootings, there's car accidents, there's COVID, and so death has no age limit. Okay, you can be old, you can be young. When I was growing up, it seemed like only old people died, but now you have them of all ages that are passing away. And so since we all have to go that way, it really behooves us to be prepared so that we are not leaving our families in a bind. I am, happy to say that my grandmother, she really did everything to make sure that everything was taken care of. My grandmother passed away last year. She was 90, but she had a will. She had specifics in her will. We knew what to do with what, and so she had insurance policy. So that's the kind of thing that that needs to happen, so that nobody's running around saying, "Well, where is this and where is that?" And so we need to go ahead and make sure we are getting our affairs in order. And so our guest on today is no stranger to some of us. He is a member of Birmingham Bible Church, but he is the best, and I mean the best, funeral director in the state of Alabama. Of course, he's a deacon at our church. He's one of our board members, and not only just that, before I knew him as that, he's just, you can tell he is a person that just is passionate about his calling as a funeral director. He really and truly cares. I tease him all the time because when we had funeral homes, services that were in person, he just made it just such a theatrical production. Like, I mean, you knew your loved one was ushered into glory right there. I mean, it was just wonderful. He made the person look natural. And so I am very happy to have Dante Jelks on today. Dante, I've already introduced you, but can you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself on today?
Sure. Great afternoon, everyone. Glad to see everyone. Glad to be here. Um, as Ms. Mason said, I'm Dante, just from Gaston, Alabama. I've been in the funeral profession literally my whole life, while everyone else was out running, playing around. I was a little kid. I wanted to go to the funeral home, I go to the cemetery and dig graves with my father. And I enjoyed that. I played football too, but hey, I want to go to the funeral home all the time. So blessed to live here in Jefferson County. Been in, like I say, been in funeral profession my whole life, licensed funeral director and embalmer. Um, I've been in, I'm 40 years old. And so I've had hands-on since 10 years old in the profession. Uh, I hate to say, but it is what it is. I've embalmed over at least about 5,000 bodies, if not way more than that. I've served many families, and I'm just grateful for what I do, love what I do, and I thank God for being a blessing to others and in what I do. So that's pretty much me. I'm a simple, basic person.
I know I love your passion, and you have a heart for this, because you have to have a heart to be able to do this. Some people, I'm sure they do it, for the paycheck, but you truly have a heart. I love the story how you tell, when you were little, you were burying insects and shoe boxes in the backyard. You already had coffins and everything. I said, wow, that's serious. But it just shows it's in you. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
in you. And so we have a few questions for today. Of course, if you're watching live, you can also post your questions in the comment section, and we'll address them as soon as we can. But Dante, if you can tell us just kind of, last year we had COVID, we have a lot of shootings and things going on. What year has 2020, even right now, this year has made a difference in your line of profession?
2020 most definitely gave a clear vision of things as we have known 2020 to be known for. It really tests a lot of the individuals in the profession, because a lot of our businesses increased significantly. A lot of individuals may say, "Well, that's good." Not necessarily, because it was to the point to where the increase of the business was so great to where, as much as you wanted to give the best quality to families as possible, it was just it's kind of hard to do that because of the increase in business, as well as generally how we were able to just sit amongst multiple individuals. um but that changed. We had to limit the amount of individuals that could come to the family conference, as well as the amount of individuals that could come to the service, which was very difficult having to explain that to a family, but for their safety. As for as much as even with the transportation of the families, we did away with the family cars, and some funeral homes have started back using them, but we are not one of those funeral homes, because of still want to keep everyone safe, and we still know that COVID is a reality to us all. Um, so it was like nothing I've ever seen before, and like no one has ever seen before, with the increase in the volume of death, limited contact with the families, having to do everything online pretty much or by phone. Um, it was, yeah, it was wasn't the ideal way of celebrating the loved one's life.
Yeah. And we talked about a little bit before you came on. How many you said that now that your services are picking up? How many bodies do you have right now? How many services are you having for this week?
Right now, we're currently serving 15 families. Um, Unfortunately, the death rate is picking back up. Some of them are natural, a few homicides, not many. But unfortunately, I'm starting to see an increase in the volume of COVID cases. It had decreased for a while. February had quietened down. March had quietened down a little bit. But bear in mind, like we were talking about, due to spring break, I think a lot of individuals let their guards down, and it is starting to pick back up, unfortunately. And let me just say, even though I know that the mask order has been lifted, please be mindful, because not only do I own a funeral home, but I have an embalming service that serves other funeral homes, and I do that, embalming for them as well as a manager of their embalming facility. And I've just been seeing at all my locations where the COVID cases are increasing again. Um, so please, just everyone, be mindful. Still continue to wear your mask. Still practice social distancing. Still continue to wash your hands. Be safe all around, because this is still a reality.
Amen. It sure is. Yeah, and I know the CDC. I think they said, now we don't have to be 6 feet apart. Now we can be 3 feet apart. But like you said, let's use our common sense,
Right.
our good judgment, and continue to wear those masks. Dante, what is the average cost for a funeral?
The average cost of a funeral is range from $8,000 to $12,000. Now, bear in mind that is not including the cemetery cost. That is not including what in the African American community in the South we're used to, family cars. That's pretty much the professional services of the funeral home, standard casket, and the out of burial container, which we commonly know as the burial vault. So that's just the necessities. That's not including all the accessories that you see with the flowers, funeral programs, newspaper announcement, those additions. So that's but the average cost is $8,000 to $12,000 just the professor services casket and the burial vault.
Wow. And so what about well, let me ask you, do those costs go up on an annual basis? So this year, let's say I spend 12,000. Is it going to go up next year? Do they go up?
Yes, ma'am, they do go up, because what people have to keep in mind, people just look at the funeral home, but they don't realize that there are a lot of middlemen, middle companies, which combine in order for us to provide the funeral service, such as your caskets called from raw steel. So those who work in the steel plants, just like every individual, after so many years, every year or every other year, you want to raise. So when, in order to accommodate those employees, they have to raise the cost of the products, which in turn raise the cost of the caskets. Same thing as burial vault, concrete. Um, they want to raise. So when that comes about, as well as the equipment to set up the grave site, as those products increase, and in turn increases the cost of the service. You have embalming fluid, taxes, um, the mortgage, keeping your facilities modern, your employees, they want raises as well. So you have many contributing factors that, yes, services do go up pretty much every year. Now, you have some funeral homes, they will try to maintain a consistent price for several years, but bear in mind, like, my facility being for one, as we try to maintain that price on the back end, you don't see it, but we're losing out trying to keep costs at a minimum and try to keep them going up. But we just recently had to do a price increase because other things are going up. But it's not so much that we want to, but keep in mind, as the community go to work and they want raises, That's what causes prices to go up in every business.
Yeah. And tell me, so what is the process of, let's say my loved one has passed away either at home or the hospital. What's the process that you have to go through from picking them up until the time they are in the ground? Because so people can get an idea of why it costs so much.
Right. So one thing people have to keep in mind, um, the funeral director of each facility has to be pretty much available around the clock.
Mhm.
So if you are a small firm, a family firm, you may have one or two funeral directors that are pretty much obligated around the clock. Or if you're a large corporate firm, you're able to uh, put it in shifts. And so as you put it in shift, that funeral director has to be available whether they're at the facility or not. So you're being obligated to wait. So that cost, as well as no matter if you're out for family celebration or just anything, you know, a lot of funeral directors limited time, a lot of owners and funeral directors limited time with their families, limited times on a lot of gatherings, as you all know, at the church, I'm not able to attend. And it's not that I'm just at home lying around because I'm not able to be with my family because of my obligation to the profession and the families that we serve. So, with that being said, going back to what happens when we receive a call from the hospital or the home of your loved one. Well, bear in mind, yes, you can use an answer service, but the family still, especially in African American communities, we want the attention of that director that we know or have a relationship with. So we commit to answering that phone call uh, to serve that family. If it's at home, we ask that if the person was in hospice service, give the hospice service the opportunity to arrive. They're going to assess the environment and the situation. Also, they're going to gather all the medication for safety purposes. And then they make contact with the doctor or the physician who was taking care of that, seeing that patient to certify the death. And then they also do a courtesy of giving the family the opportunity to come see their loved one before they're removed from the home. Then they give us a call. If it's at a hospital, they're going to, most of the time, they're going to allow the family the opportunity to come visit with their loved one before they call us to remove their loved one into our care. So that's what generally takes place, whether it's at a home or a hospital. Now, if your loved one was not in hospice, two things will happen. If they have been under a doctor's care, but they were not in hospital, just a sudden death, if they have a medical history, most of the time the police don't arrive on the scene. They're going to assess the situation, the environment, and if they don't suspect any foul play or anything with the individual, they're going to go on. The coroner will give them permission to release your loved one into the care of the funeral home, and then the police will come make contact with the funeral home. Now, if they do not have a medical history, the police suspect something took place and that something doesn't look right, then the police will, in turn, the coroner's office will come out, or the coroner will order the transit team to receive that loved one from the home into their care at the coroner's office in order to do a post-mortem examination, just to see what was the cause of death, make sure no foul play took place. And if foul play took place and they do find a suspect, that evidence is used in a court case or what have you.
And I want to say this because that time frame is so quick. I remember, I think my grandmother passed, I think it was maybe 3:30. And at 3:45, that chaplain was calling me and saying, okay, who do you want to pick up your grandmother's body? So you have to know in advance. You have to have it laid out somewhere. We've had Katrina Brown on before. She's an attorney with Creative Mind Law, but you need to have it laid out. Okay, in the event of my death, this is what's going to happen first. This is who I want to have so and so. So you have to make quick decisions. But is there a timeline? Let's just say people's siblings are arguing about who gonna get the body. Do you have it? Is there a timeline that the hospital or the funeral director has to pick up the body?
Well, it depends on the hospital because what you just mentioned, people arguing about who's going to get the body,
Yeah.
that is a reality. Unfortunately, it's a It is reality, and it happens a lot. Um, Generally, the hospital do not want to be responsible for that individual no more than probably 24 to 48 hours. Also, bearing in mind, it also depends on if that hospital has a refrigeration system that is in operation. You may think of a medical facility having all the equipment that they need, but some of them do not. And if a hospital right now stays busy, but they do not have refrigeration for the deceased to remain there. It's just a room. So, with that being said, what we have to understand when we die, decomposition takes place starting in the involuntary muscle of the eyes immediately, and it just works its way. Now, depending on the cause of death, um, the body deteriorates at different rates or what have you. But as the Bible said, just as sure as we came from dust, we shall return to dust. So the body, for a lack of a better way to explain it, the body's just like, well, our flesh is just like the flesh that we eat, like animal flesh. So imagine just leaving hamburger meat or chicken or what have you out in the hot sun or in a warm room. Now, a lot of people may think that's not being sensitive, but the reality is just the same flesh as they have, we have the same flesh. So you already know what's going to happen if you leave that, that meat just sitting out, or we're the same way. As well as, our bodies are full of a lot of bacteria and what have you. And so once we die, antibodies and what have you no longer working. So the bacteria and fungus or whatever that are within our body, they are allowed to pretty much have a party. Uh, and so that's why, and then at the same time, because of legal reasons, and these days, it is what it is. A lot of individuals are want a quick get rich scheme. So anything that you can try to sue a person about, people want to try to sue you about. So with that being said, hospital don't want to be liable for that body just sitting there multiple days. The coroner's office, even though they do have good refrigeration, they still don't want to be liable. But they are more lenient than the hospitals are because they have the proper refrigeration, and that's what they're accustomed to.
So Dante, once you pick up the deceased, and I guess the next process, you get them dressed or whatever for the family to view. So you're sitting down with the family, and they start talking about what they want. Well, this my mom, I want her to have it best. And so when you start calculating that stuff, have you ever had a family that said, you know what, we just can't afford this, or there was no monies? Have you ever had that situation?
Had it a lot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, uh, you know, I, our grandparents and our parents, some of them, they prepared to die, um, meaning they believed in life insurance or believed in saving money because they knew that a dying day was coming. Unfortunately, this modern day generation, we want the hair done, the nails done, and excuse my improper language, but we want the toes did. And we want the Jordans, and we want the lavish cars, a house, whatever, but our business is not in order. Um, and so when it comes, what people have to understand, the funeral home is a ministry. It is, but it's not a charity. It is a business. And the reason it has to be that way, because like I said before, and I say all the time, I will continue to say, utility companies, they do not care if you don't collect. The vendors from the casket companies, the embalming fluid companies, and the vault companies, they do not care if you do not collect. Your employees, they do not care if you do not collect. Come payday and come their bills due, they want their money. Uncle Sam, he doesn't care if you don't collect. When it's time to pay your taxes, he wants his money. The state board, they don't care if you don't collect. When it comes time to pay them for regulating your facilities and to have your license, they want their money. So, yeah.
All of that costs, and we need to factor
Right.
that in, and I know you, Dante, you're going to try, and we talked about this before. And everybody in my house knows that I want to be cremated.
Right.
That's just me. I think, um, to save, all of the heartache, the pain. I remember years ago, and I attended one funeral, and this particular person had young children. I was like, this is too much. So I've decided I want to be cremated, and but that even costs as well. And now, what's the average cost for a cremation?
Now, the average cost of a cremation, roughly in Jefferson County, about 1895, roughly in that area. Now, the average cost, according to like say Lincoln Heritage, is $4,000 to $8,000 for a direct cremation. And there are some corporate facilities, they do actually charge that price for a direct cremation. Um, Other than that, we try to be as fair as possible. And not saying that they aren't fair, because each is own and everybody has different overhead. But our fee for a direct cremation is $7.95. We try to keep it fair, also keeping in mind the community where we're located, as well as other individuals. We just try to keep it fair as possible. But that's still still costing. They still have to be paid in full.
So what is the average, and people who have life insurance policies? What is
Okay.
the average cost of a life insurance policy that you have seen coming through?
The average policy that most people would at least have is at least about $10,000.
Yeah.
Um, at least $10,000. Now, $10,000, um, choosing a funeral service wisely, and the cemetery wisely, that will cover the necessities and allow you to have a funeral service and a burial without the stress of having to come up with the money. Um, Most of it, like say $10,000. You do have a few older individuals, they at least have $5,000, and depending on the location that you choose and the package or service that you choose, you can still be accommodated with $5,000. But that at least what most people have if they do have life insurance.
Now, for those of you who are just tuning in, now remember the average is 10,000, but every year funeral costs are going up. So
Mhm.
if I am 48 and I have a $10,000 policy, then the time I turn, let's say 80, then I'm sure the funeral cost is going to be double, maybe double than what it is right now. So,
Exactly.
so when people, so what are, to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we need to make sure we have enough to cover our burial. However, and we've had different lives on this before, but you also need to have enough monies for your family. We have small children. So, of course, we have an insurance policy that covers, these jokers got to eat when I die. They want to participate in activities, they want to go to college. And so, when, for those of you who are looking online, when you're looking at insurance policies, you need to make sure that your family is going to be okay,
Mhm.
not just also for the burial, but also for life after the burial.
Exactly.
We've seen, and you let me know, I've seen a lot of things at funerals. Red caskets, do they cost more? Blue caskets, large caskets, small
Mhm.
caskets? Okay.
They do for the if you get into a casket with like the swing bars, and people ask for the casket that seals, or the casket that has the brush to where when the light hits it, it just sparkles. They do they do cost more,
Oh,
as well as I'm a heavy set man, so not to say it to offend anyone, because I'm a big guy. um so larger caskets, they do cost more, because you have to keep in mind, um, the stamps to make the casket, they have to create larger stamps in order to make the larger size caskets, which costs the casket companies more in order to produce those caskets, um, as well as the material going into that casket. So the caskets cost more, and then if you want uh, And of course, if it's a larger size casket, it has to have a larger size burial vault. And then certain cemeteries, when it gets into oversized, they're going to charge you for 2 burial plots as opposed to 1, because they don't want to lose money, because that land costs them money as well in order to maintain. That does cost, and the more glamorous a funeral gets, the more it costs. And I think what a lot of individuals do, they get caught up in the moment, and depending on the funeral director, yes, it is a business, and we do have to make money. But I believe in being transparent, being fair, and showing everyone all of the options, and let them making decisions if they want to keep it, at a minimum, or if they want a more elaborate service, as opposed to me talking you towards an elaborate service. I don't believe in that. So, a lot of individuals don't keep in mind, like you said, you have to live after. I mean, their descendants have to live, and if they have children, they have to live afterwards. Or if they left bills behind, those bills need to be cleared or what have you. So don't put it all into a service, because I'll be honest with you, most families, after they've had that service, they don't remember the type of casket that they had. The only reason that they remember programs because they saved them. The flowers, they don't remember the flowers. All they can tell you, oh, it was beautiful, but they can't tell you, the details of it. So, you've put all this money into this big elaborate service, and to each his own, because we did our grandmother like that, but to each his own. But most of them don't know all the products and everything that went into that service taking place any difference than somebody who had a basic service, but the celebration of the service was nice. Most of the time, you're going to remember how the service was, how the homegoing celebration, I should say, was. And you're going to remember how that funeral director made you feel, how they treated your family, how they took care of you, and also how they presented your loved one. Those are the things that you really remember, not so much the merchandise and what you place them in. And at the end of the day, I know certain individuals, if they feel if they spend a certain amount of money, it makes them feel good, or at the same time they're doing something good for their loved one. But I've been in profession my whole life. I haven't seen anyone return from the dead. So after you die, that is it. They don't know what you've done for them.
That's true. No, that's true. And so it behooves us to, focus on the most important things, not be too extravagant, because you've already said that that's $8,000 to $12,000, but that's not including the cemetery plot, the casket, the burial vault, the programs. I've seen doves being released and balloons being released at the graveside. So all that stuff, unless you're bringing them yourself, all that stuff does cost.
Right, right.
And so let me ask you this. Is there any way, so let's say someone, and nowadays, I've said this before, you have 20-year-olds passing away. So as parents, we need to make sure as well that we have some insurance policies on our children as
Right,
well.
right.
And so one of my questions is, so um is there any way to locate, let's say someone says, well, I know my mom had a policy somewhere. Is there any way to locate it in some large database, you know if she had an insurance policy?
So we have been asked that question many times, and in order to protect you, the insured, as well as the owner of the policy, that information cannot be revealed to us, because, and reason being, unfortunately, everything there's a bad apple. Certain individuals, they find out how much you have, then it comes to preying on your emotions. Or some individuals will find out how much you have and collect that money. And if you didn't know it, you don't know anything about it. That's money in their pocket that they've gotten away with. And so to protect against both of those things happening, uh, the funeral homes aren't allowed to, and there isn't a database for us to search where those policies are located. The best, what I would suggest doing, um, is pre-planning for your service. Reason that I suggest be pre-planning for your service, because you can go on and pay for your service ahead. Um, that protects you against inflation. And I know the major questions that we get: Well, what if the funeral home goes out of business? What if you're not here? So the thing about it is, your pre-need can be in either a trust or an insurance policy. They are both transferable. That money cannot go into the funeral home's account. It has to go in that trust or either to that insurance company that's underwriting that pre-need policy. That's to protect you, the consumer, because prior to that law being in place, yes, funeral homes were placing that money into their bank accounts and either adding to their facilities, or that was their spring break vacation money, or that paid for them a nice elaborate home or this nice beautiful car sitting outside. And then when either the owner died or the business bellied up, then those individuals that paid for their services lost their money. And I know it's a major concern. That's why it has to be placed in a trust or either in an insurance company. That way your money is protected, not in the name of the funeral home. And
Good.
so, and with that being said, that's why I say don't fear getting a pre-need with a particular funeral home now, and regardless if it's used 20 or 30 years later, because your money, because of the way that the laws are now, your money is protected and it can be transferred. Now, will ABC funeral home prices be the same as XYZ funeral home? Possibly not. There may be a price difference. But if there is, still that money is set aside, it is secured, it keeps up with inflation, not you having to keep up with inflation. So that helps make that easier for you, as well as, like you was referring to, a lot of individuals, they have differences when death comes about because emotions are high. You just experienced the death of a loved one that you can no longer physically have a communication with. So emotions are all over the place and anger is building up. And that is understandable. That happens a lot. So, with that being said, pre planning your service, um, that enables you the opportunity to say, hey, I would like this to take place. I would like this individual to sing. I would like this individual to do my eulogy. I would like my service at this particular place. I would like this particular casket, this particular vault, this particular cemetery, this particular flower, this particular funeral program. So most of the time I've seen when an individual has laid out everything that they want to take place, most families honor that. It's, you have a few that do not, but for the main part, most families, they do honor that. And it cuts out on a lot of, we don't have the money, or what are we going to do, where we're going to come up with money, because those monies have been paid as long as you've made your payments during the time period of your premiums. Um, that's there. The instructions are there. The funeral home that your loved one wanted to take care of them, that's in place, and it eliminates a lot of agony and stress and disagreement during those times.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that up about pre-planning. And so can people, so how can people, of course, I was going to have you give me your information. How can they contact you to go ahead and set this up? Because you've already said that if we go ahead, it goes into a nationwide database. And so if I move to California, that money is still there in that national database. So how can people set that up with you?
Yes, ma'am. We can be contacted at Dante Jelks Funeral Home. Contact number is 205-595-0111, or you can email us. If you're working during the office hours, you can feel free to email us at jelksfuneralhome@gmail.com. You can also visit our website at www.jelksfuneralhome.com and go to the contact us section and fill out that application. And that will in turn send us an email letting know that, letting us know any questions that you have and that you want us to reach out to you to schedule that appointment. Or our pre-need specialist, which is Mr. Thomas Jackson, you can contact him directly at 205-902-7690. So in order to make it as easy as possible, we have multiple ways that you can reach out to us to not only just talk pre-need, visit the facilities, get to know us before having to need us, as well as you can think of your different options that would be best for you and your family with a sound mind, not out of high emotions. and not in the midst of a lot of disagreements taking place because of the high emotions of the death of a loved one.
And then it makes it easier because let's just say, your family is not financially capable of making that decision, and you can have an insurance policy, and then boo boo is going to take that $10,000 and going to put it on a car, a house. They're going to be popping bottles downtown. I mean, so if you pre-plan, you can go ahead and eliminate all that and say, no, y'all go see Dante when I
Right.
pass. No, that's good. Another question came in. Can you prepay for a cremation?
Yes, you can prepay for a cremation. This is the thing with a cremation, because you may want to be cremated, but because cremation is an irreversible process, when you die, you become what's called by the state quasi property, meaning you are the property of the next of kin. So if they do not want, let me correct that, not only next of kin or next of kins if you have multiple children and no spouse alive. So if the majority do not want you to be cremated, then they do have the option to change your plan on that. If they, of course, if they want to pay for a burial, they have to come, pay the money themselves, because you only pay for the cremation, but you can prepay for it. But like I say, once again, because cremation is an irreversible process, the next of kin or next of kins with equal kinship, they have to be the one to sign off on the cremation permission form in order for that to take place.
Okay, gotcha. I remember that being discussed when we had our senior empowerment. We talked about that. And then I think one more question that I had. I'm trying to see, checking the feed to see if anybody has any questions. So if someone does have the $10,000 policy, let's say it's in my name, then how do you get your money? Do I sign over the check to you? How does that work?
Now, the way that works is, first off, let me say this: unless you have pre-planned with a funeral home, uh, unless you have pre-planned with a funeral home, don't ever take your private policy to the funeral home and let the funeral director see it first. I am a licensed funeral director and owner telling you, do not do that. We don't practice that. All my counselors know we don't even practice looking at your policy unless we just have to, meaning information that you cannot locate, simply because this is the thing. And I also want to add in there another good reason for pre-planning, because that money is set aside for your service. And if you have a private life insurance, that can be left behind for your descendants to use as they need. Um, but the reason I say don't do that, because for years, and it still takes place, when certain funeral directors know how much insurance you have, then the theatrical part of the funeral planning comes out, preying on your emotions to get you to spend more money. And because you're in a vulnerable stage, most of the time you give in to it. And before you know it, you went in to spend maybe $8,000. You walked out spending $20,000 in the name of, I want my loved one to have the best because someone took advantage of my emotions. So never take your policy into a funeral home and present that before you have decided on the service that you prefer for your loved one. So most of the time, like I say, when people do bring their private policies in, pretty much all the funeral director needs is just the name of the company, the policy number, the name of the beneficiary. Another important thing to understand, your policy, most insurance policies have to be in state longer than 2 years in order for it to pay the face value of the policy, because you have a 2 year, what's called a 2 year contestable period, meaning that if you die within that 2 year period, the insurance company have the right to do a research on your medical history in order to make sure that you did not lie on your insurance application. If they find that were not truthful, they will only refund the premiums back to the family. They will not pay the full amount. But if you did tell a story or lie, however you want to put it, and you make it past that 2-year period, they're going to pay the face value regardless. Now, the only way that one of the ways that the value of that will be changed if the date of birth given to them is different from the date of birth presented to them at the time of death. I've seen that happen to where individuals had a whole life policy and the insurance company was given one date of birth, and then at the time of death it was a different date of birth, and so that changed the value of the policy. But most of the time, as long as that information is all correct, it will pay the value of the policy. But what takes place in order for the funeral home to get paid, the funeral home has to get you to sign an assignment form. That's saying that you agree to, if the funeral is $6,000, you agree to pay $6,000 out of that $10,000 policy to XYZ funeral home, meaning that's all XYZ funeral home is to get. The remaining $4,000 is supposed to come directly from the corporate office to you, the beneficiary, not the owner of the policy, but whoever the beneficiary is. That's where the remainder of the money, will come. But a funeral home should never get no more than you signed that assignment for.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So, well, we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about the purpose of had prepay, and also pre arrangement for your funeral services. We talked about that. Talked about having the importance of a living will. It is important, people, to do that. Uh, Dante Jelks has offered a lot of good suggestions that we need to put into practice. We even talked about how, if you go ahead and prepay it, then you don't have to leave it to Johnny, because you don't know what Johnny gonna do with it. So a lot of good things that we discussed on today. So Dante, I'm going to do. Let me check one more time. Of course, if people want to contact you, of course, they can contact you from the website at jelksfuneralhome.com. And then the phone number is 205 595 0111. And then you mentioned Thomas Jackson number. I believe his number is 205 902 7690. That correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any other suggestions how people can better prepare or get their affairs in order before they pass? Anything else?
Well, also, I will mention about the will as well. It is very beneficial to have that in place because, we don't know where death, when it will come. And a lot of individuals say, well, I'm not old yet. I'm not about to die. Let me just say, death has no age. Um, I see as many individuals, and matter of fact, just to be transparent, I've seen several 40-year-olds within the last week or two that we have taken care of, just about as many as I've seen 70 or 80-year-olds. So we don't know where death lies. So with that being said, it behooves yourself not only pre-plan your service, which of what you would prefer, to have a will, because if you don't have a will, you're pretty much saying you're adding stress to your descendants, because they're going to go through the probate courts, and then if they're not on the same page, that's causing animosity. They're bickering and back and forth with one another. And also, you kind of pretty much saying to the state, I've worked hard on my life to have these possessions, but hey, here you go. And so, and so just, death is, like you said, death is not something that we want to talk about, but it is going to happen to all of us. Jesus rose again, but he died. So, I mean, so it is going to happen. So, from the funeral plan or cremation plan to the will to, make sure you have the right investments, have all of that in line, and don't ever think that you don't have enough or you have too little. Every bit counts. It's not what you have, is what you do with what you are blessed with. Look how powerful a mustard seed is, So if you had faith of a mustard seed, you move mountains. So you never have too little in order not to plan what to take place with it after you transition. So please, ma'am, please, sir, uh, put those actions in place. Um, I will say this: I'm been in profession my whole life. I'm young and age, been in profession my whole life. Um, just being transparent, I don't think I've ever seen so much discord or much families than I've seen in current times. And it's simply because of not having all the things in order that I just mentioned. Um, and I always say, and I say it before, and I continue to say to the day I die, if you don't know how much you were worth during your life, see how people react after you die. Were they more concerned about you being here with them, or were they more or are they more concerned about your possessions and what they can gain from your death? Um, so to make it as easy as possible on your descendants, we all love our descendants. We all want the best for them, and you want to make sure the best is in order after you have transitioned. And at the same time, not only making sure that the best in order for them after your transition, that's your contribution to their future in training them on how to prepare for when their demise takes place. It become and then if you're doing it and they're doing it, it becomes a generational action, which makes it easier for the family.
Talk about, I think this is my last question for real.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
What happens if this kind of recently came up? We knew about this situation where, um, and sometimes, uh, a family member is at odds with one another. And what happens if the body is not claimed by certain family members? First of all, who has the legal right to the body? You can go to hierarchy, spouse, parents, children, however. After that, what happens if people cannot agree?
Right. So what happens in that end, like you say, you do have the hierarchy of kinship, which like spouse, children, and so forth and so on. But what supersedes spouse, if you're in the military and you have legal documents saying where the military supersedes um, the hierarchy of kinship. That can take place. We don't see it that often; it's very few, but that can happen. But if no one does claim the responsibility or come forward, then you pretty much become property of the county. Now, where you have to bear in mind that depends on if that particular county will do a county burial or what's called a pauper's burial. Because, take for example, my hometown in Etowah County, I don't think they offer you the option of a pauper's burial. So someone has to assume responsibility of that individual. Or the funeral home, I've seen it where funeral homes been stuck with the individual and they had to assume responsibility of properly burying that individual. But here in Jefferson County, if that happens, then you are turned over to the county, and the county they do a mass burial. I don't know how often, so month, but they will do a mass burial where everyone is placed in a mass grave in Morris, Alabama. They have a chaplain to say a prayer, and that's pretty much it. That takes place if no one claims that individual, or if individuals are bickering amongst one another. And I had, 2 years ago, at the same time, I had two individuals where that took place. Um, and one was a pastor. Family were at odds. They could not come on one accord. I had both of those individuals for a month. And so I asked them if they wanted to assume responsibility. They did not. So both of those individuals, I had to, turn over into the care of the county in order for them to do what's called an indigent burial. Bear in mind, let me just say this: I was able to do that because they died in Jefferson County. But if they died in another county and I had the body, Jefferson County would not do that because they were not a resident of that particular county. But there are cases where that does take place, where you are turned over to the county because families cannot come together in order to, and it's not so much all the time that they can come together. Some are just not financially able. Now that's a different story, and that's understandable. some individuals aren't financially able, no matter how hard they try. It is what it is. But that's one thing. But because the family can't come together and they have the finances, but they won't do it, that's another thing. And yeah, it's not good.
We actually went to the morgue, and the the guy, I don't know his title, but he's kind of saying, he said what you said, that now it's becoming more prevalent
Mhm.
that families are not claiming the bodies of their loved ones for whatever reason, strife, don't have the money. But it behooves us, like, and I'll say this again. So if you don't want to be a property of the county, you need to make sure you have pre-planned services that's in a trust, not to the funeral home. We just learned that. You need to make sure you have a living will. You need to make sure that your affairs are in order. Make sure you do have that assurance policy. And if you do have one, make sure you sign it over to the responsible party, in your family.
Right.
Dante, this was great information. I'm going to do just a few brief announcements for all of our guests, and then I'm going to have you come back at the very end. Won't take long, and you can tell everyone again how they can contact you.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So just give me just a second.
Yes.
All right, everyone. So, of course, we just want to thank you for joining in this segment of our Winning Wednesday. This is Birmingham Bible Church's Reconstruction 21. Is our theme for the month for the year of 2021. We just believe in that God can reconstruct, of course, everything in your lives. As mentioned before, we are on Facebook Live. A lot of you know that. We're on YouTube, BHAM BC, and we are on Twitter. On Twitter, we are Beham Bible Church. Also, you can look on Twitter on Pastor Mason's page, which is Dr. JHM the third, and that is three eyes. We have so many ways for you to continue to connect with us virtually. You don't have to be a member of Birmingham Bible Church to participate in all these activities. We have virtual hangouts for seniors, for men, for children, for teens. We're going to have quarterly events for women. Tomorrow we have our small group. We're on lesson number 6, and it's the lesson is called The Invisible War. It is about a lesson on temptation. So if you desire any information on this, please email us at ladypam@tcowi.org. And then Pastor Mason just started a very powerful series called The Church That Jesus Built, every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. on all of our social media outlets. And today, of course, you heard from Dante Jelks. He is a funeral director and top embalmer. I forgot, I think I left that out, of the state of Alabama. And so, of course, he's going to come back in a minute and give us all his information of how you can contact him if you have any more questions or if you want to pre-plan for your services. But next week, we have Tammy Cawthon. She's going to talk to us about stress management. A lot of us have been stressed, and we have a lot of reasons why we are stressed. And so she's going to help us with that next week at the same time. Please tune in on this afternoon at 6:30 p.m. right here on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We have Dr. Consuela Wilkins. She is going to help us understand about COVID-19 and its vaccination. So if you have any questions, I'm telling you, once she gets through with this presentation, you will have the full knowledge and the full understanding of why there's such a push for vaccinations. So that's going to be this afternoon at 6:30 p.m. And also, you all, if you can't watch it right at that moment, don't forget you can go back and watch it as well, and you can share it as well. This coming Sunday, we are having our virtual business expo immediately after worship service. So if you want to participate, if any of you have a business, you know someone who has a business, please tell them to contact us so they can get on our virtual expo and really tell everybody about their services and their products. Once again, you can email us at ladypam@tcowi.org. And then every first Sunday of the month, we are going to be having our virtual drive-up celebration. We had our very first one on Resurrection Sunday, and we all enjoyed it. People, we just missed each other, missed seeing each other. So, of course, by popular demand, we're going to have that every first Sunday of the month. We're going to change that time. Instead of it being 11 o'clock, it's going to be 10 o'clock a.m. Due to the hot weather we are having here in Alabama. And then, of course, we have our prayer room call every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. That number is 515-604-9324. And just like to thank you for all of you, how you continue to support our Compassion International children. We have 10 sponsored children. So thank you for your support for Ishmael, for Laura, for Stacy, for Danielle, for Joseph, for Ralph, for FD, Gabriella, Justin, and Maya. Thank you for how you donate towards that, because of your monies we're able to provide food for them, medical supplies, counseling, educational needs, and physical growth. So those are our announcements for this week. So also our website is bhambc.org if you have any other questions about that as well. And so, Dante, as we get ready to conclude, please tell everyone once again how they can contact you.
Sure. First of all, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for the to Birmingham Bible Church for this opportunity to share the great information. We can be reached at Dante Jelks Funeral Home at 205-595-0111, or either you can go to our website at www.jelksfuneralhome.com and go to the contact us section and fill out the application that will send us an email, and we can respond to whatever question you have. Or I forgot to mention, we're in a Facebook type of world, and I'm on Facebook. So if you need to inbox me, feel free to do so. I have my phone with me 24/7. So yes, ma'am. So those are the ways, or if you want to email us, you can email us at jelksfuneralhome@gmail.com. But those are multiple ways that you can reach out to us. If I'm not able to directly make contact with you, I have other individuals that are part of our team that are our caring professionals that are willing to address any questions or concerns that you have in order to make your process an easier process in making your decisions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dante. I know you are super busy, because I don't know if you're logging in kind of late. He has 15 bodies right now that he's having to prepare services for. So I know you are super busy. Pastor Mason, we thank you for donating your time for this worthy cause to really educate everybody about how important it is to get your affairs in order. So thank you so much. Blessings upon you and your entire business. Miss Erica, I see she watching online, your wife. So hey, Erica. So, and thank you all, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much, Dante.
Thank you, Lady Mason.
Have a great day.
You all too. Yes, ma'am.